So there's Surrey Timbers sell African rosewood, which can be a really good substitute again. It's a nice colour, it's more like the colours antiques turn to. So I don't care what it is, as long as it looks right.
Excuse me, those are sort of new woods.
Yeah.
The antique woods have faded.
Yeah.
Won't those change colour with time so they don't match anymore after 10, 20 years?
Generally, dark woods go light and light wood go dark. So when it's in the middle, it's generally okay. You know, sort of, yeah, as long as it's not too dark or too light, they generally stay. I've got other ones. I've got some genuine ivory here. This is actually from a tusk. It's mostly about 50 years old. Obviously, can't use it because of CITES, but I've got it. It's been passed down to me. Same with tortoiseshell. Got some tortoiseshell leaves. Don't use those. I mean, with the ivory, there's a couple of substitutes you can use. I use the polyester resin. It's fairly cheap. It's got grain looking like ivory almost. It's sometimes a bit fiddly to work because it's quite brittle, because it's quite flexible. But when it goes in and it's coloured, it's generally lost. You can buy mammoth tusk, which comes from Siberia, but the problem with that is the Russians blasting out the permafrost and they're destroying the environment. So I won't buy it on that grounds because I don't think it's ethical to use that. And it's really expensive as well. These are a scratch stop. I know most people have heard of scratch stops. Yeah, it's basically a really simple tool. Just an L there, and you can replicate any moulding pretty much, you know, within reason, unless it's too big. You just I use card scrapers, just a card scraper, cut it up, and then you just file in the shape, and then you can run your moulding to match pretty much any moulding. And I've got some scratch stops. I make various shapes for the jobs. You won't be able to see that, but that's one I had to make this week. Really small little architectural moulding for a very nice job out of pear. So have a look at those. They're brilliant, and they're obviously so easy to make. You can make it out of any hardwood. That's lignum, but any bit of beech, anything hard will do the job.
So, Darren, how long would it take to create that moulding on the right-hand picture with the scratch top?
3-4 minutes.
Really?
Really quick. I mean, if it's slightly bigger, I would round the edges to take off with a block plane, maybe just sort of soften the edges, so then it's quicker. You know, you're not taking all the edges. But it's so quick. It's surprising how quick it is once you've made the blade and you've got it all set up. Cramps. Everyone loves cramps. And I'm sure everyone would say you can't have enough, but in restoration, definitely can't have enough. And which one would you have? Well, you have to have them all. Every single one there I use regularly, from the really deep throat ones, which are about, I think they're about 14 inches, to like the ones, you know, you get in market stores, whatever. They're all useful. And there's a couple here that are really useful. What's that? Or upholstery spring. And basically that's one of the most useful tools in restoration. Because what you do, you cut it into a circle like that, you sharpen the ends, and you can cramp awkward shapes. And they're free, and they're brilliant. And I've got a box of springs there I brought from a job I ripped out. You're more than welcome to take many as you want. Another useful one, bike inner tube. Cut it, open it up, cut it in strips, and you can wrap it round awkward shapes, and it holds while the glue's setting. Really useful again. Again, free, really. Yeah, get a puncher, you've got a free cramp. I don't think there's any of those. I've got so many different cramps. I love the record 4-inch ones that are really good, and these ones I find good. But all these have their place in restoration at some point. Always end up using cramps. And storage is always a problem. My workshop's 35 foot by about 15, so when I've got work in there as well, it gets very crowded with machines. So every bit of space is critical. And I'm sure most people here haven't got a huge workshop. Like we don't live in America, where they seem to have 4,000 square feet as a hobby. And I have all the cramps. I've got a rack here. I've got cramps both sides, everywhere. That's cramps on the other side. Even behind this bench here, I've got space where I can put things behind, like boards or whatever. It's always utilising space. This is my present workshop, and this is the bench setup. The most useful tools are the small bandsaw for little patches, because that's what my main work is, small patches, small work. It's got a 1/4 inch really fine blade on. And the disc sander is great for getting that rough shape to a patch, and then you playing it to fit, just that final bit. Really most useful tools in the workshop. And then I've got obviously my glue the other end. And that's just the bench I said, I don't know if you saw it, it's made out of a fire door with just like a frame, and it's all screwed to the wall. Because when you're taking furniture apart, you're obviously rocking, and you have one of those freestanding benches, you end up walking across the workshop with it. So having something screwed to the wall is great. It just makes life a lot safer and easier to work on. Again, more cramps everywhere. And then you've got space for tins, every bit of space is used.
What's the brand of bandsaw you use?
I've got an Axminster one, which isn't great.
That's the small one.
Oh, that one's Delta, but I think that one's made by quite a few different companies, but just branded different. But it's just like any small bandsaw, it's just really useful. That's the other side of my bench. So I've got the large bandsaw, the Axminster bandsaw, and my lathe, which I generally use for polishing stuff on. Don't do an awful lot of turning. And again, storage. And I've got skylights, and I've got very strong LD lights. Light is also one of the critical things in a workshop, especially for restoration. And I've got east to west skylights, so I get a good natural light, doesn't get too bright. And I work over the skylight, so the light's coming directly onto my bench, so I've got a really nice, good light all day, apart from this time of year. Timber storage again. I've got a metal shed in the garden, and I've got all the crates with oak draw sides and bottoms and exotic timbers. They're all marked up, so when I do need something, I can go in there, pull out the relevant box, and get the timber out. And down the side of the workshop, which is very near the fence, I put this racking in. I've got the longer bits of timber down there with my gas bottles for the boiler. And if I need to get a piece of timber out, which I know I'm going to need, I'll get it out early into the workshop. So it's got a time to acclimatise a little bit. But you generally cutting up into small pieces, so it's not too bad. And now I've got a couple other sheds full of, these are mahogany breakers. This is all mahogany, mostly Cuban. There's some plantation grown Indian mahogany that I got in the auction. It's okay, but it's good size. And that's the best source of timber for restoration is breakers. You buy a piece of furniture, you break it, because you can pick up a drop leaf table, 30, 40 pounds. You've got 3 nice bits of Cuban for the top, and then you've got the legs, if they're square legs, you've got some nice timber. And it's using the timber, it's not you recycling, so it's all useful. Screws. This is how I use a lot of this information to date furniture. When I've worked for the dealer in London, and we did Masterpiece, they vetted the furniture. And sometimes there'll be a query about the age of a piece of furniture. And screws, taking the screws out is actually a really good way. On the right is a hand-cut screw, pre-1750. It did go a bit further after that, but it's basically filed by hand. And if I've got some examples here of the different screws on there, they were literally had a jig and they would file it, and you'd get flats on the screw in the bottom of the channel, and you can see that quite clearly on a hand-cut screw. And it's a wrought iron with a filed head. That's another giveaway, and quite a shallow countersunk normally. B is the first machine-cut screw, which the pattern was 1750, and you can see it's quite different in the actual in there, and it was a handmade machine. You just turn and it would automatically cut it. It had a couple of cutters that would cut the screw. Again, that's wrought iron. And then C is I think it's got it written, a die-form screw, dating from about 1818 to 1860. And D's quite similar with a few adjustments, but E's the modern screw, which was an American pattern in 1846. And an Englishman bought the rights and machinery, brought it over to the UK, set up in Birmingham, and his name was Nettlefold, which I'm sure most people would know that name. So that's the modern screw. So, and there's various characteristics from these. Obviously, the modern screw has that concentric rings on the top, which you can tell then it's a properly machined screw. In 2007, when I worked for Arlington Conservation, I was lucky enough to go up to Dumfries House in Cumnock, where Christie's were having a sale. They were going to disperse the house on all the contents of Dumfries House, which holds 10% of the world's early Chippendale furniture. And it's all, they got the invoices, so they know exactly who made it and when. And we went up for a week. This was to get stuff ready to come down to London to auction. So he's just going up there to make sure everything was solid and nothing would fall apart or be damaged in transit. And this furniture hadn't left the house since it was made. It was incredible. It's a time capsule, because the fifth Earl of Dumfries built the house, and it was Robert Adam who built the house, and he had, it was incredible. This is the suite of furniture they had, beautiful Chippendale furniture, and they had metal braces going across where it come apart. And there were a set of armchairs that went with this, Chippendale armchairs, and the housekeeper there told us that one of them had woodworm, and a previous housekeeper burnt it because he didn't want the woodworm to spread in the house. So that was a shame. This would have been the most expensive piece of English furniture that would have ever sold if it had gone to auction. It was built by Chippendale in 1959, a costly sum of £47, 5 shillings, which is a lot of money back then. I think it equated at about 1.2 million now. And it's made of Badook, beautiful. It's not too big, it's quite a small bookcase. It looks grander, but it's actually a really nice size. And this is it when we had it on its back, just going over it. And you can see a leather wheel caster. Leather wheel casters were basically from 1730 to 1770. And then they moved to all brass wheels. But the leather wheels are very nice. I've replaced them when they've worn out. They can get stuck and you get flat. And you just take them apart, get an old belt, put new leather in. This is how I do patching. When I have a patch to make, bit of sellotape, nothing fancy. And I draw the grain direction on. And then I transfer it to a piece of wood. Again, obviously the grain direction helps. Spot glue it with super glue, scribe round it with a scalpel, and then I router out near to the line, with a small router, and then we're using in-channel gouges, chisel to the line. And if you have a slight taper on the patch, which I do on the sander most of the time, you can get a really nice snug fit. Really good way to do it. Really easy as well. Yeah.
On Dumfries House,
Yes.
I think I saw it on television. It was going to go for auction.
Yes.
And then I think
Prince Charles stepped in. Yeah.
And I don't know what transpired.
The Duke offered it to Scottish Heritage, but they couldn't come up with the money. For whatever reason, they didn't buy it. And then Prince Charles stepped in with a consortium of other people, and it's been saved for the nation. And you can go up there now and see all the contents.
It looked amazing.
It's incredible, yeah. But I preferred it when there was no one there apart from us and the housekeeper. That was a lot more fun, exploring around there. Butterflies, my pet hate, absolutely loathe them. Got no place in restoration whatsoever. Whenever they're in a piece of furniture, I take them out because they don't actually solve the problem. This is a nice little tripod table dating from about 1750. It'd been badly, obviously fallen over, and because it's scalloped out on the top side, it's very thin. Obviously broke. Someone glued it very badly and thought they'd put butterflies in to make it stronger. Didn't work. It was really loose. It was wobbling all over the place. So take it apart, and then I washed the glue off. Now, to wash the glue off, the best thing I use is wallpaper paste. Bit of water, make a thick paste up. You can put it on the glue if it's water-soluble glue, like animal glue or even PVA. And as long as you don't let it dry out, it will soften the glue up, and then you can gently wash it off, rather than splashing hot water everywhere over the whole piece and get it over the surfaces. So that's a really good, another good tip. Wallpaper paste is really useful.
So what with all PVAs then?
It will generally reverse PVAs, maybe not waterproof ones though. So then I glued up the top with Aridite to get that joint flush at the top. Obviously that's the most important thing. You want to save the surface as much as possible. And then I routed out as far as I dared, because obviously you can see you've got the turned rings, so the top's actually very thin. I routed out a patch there, and I used an old table leaf, again from a breaker, to match the timber, Cuban mahogany, and then glued it in with West System, and then shaped it. And once it was, I don't do any finishing, I only do cabinet work. So I haven't got many photos of finished work because I don't do it. It goes off to people I work with. And that was that. So that was now as strong as the timber table was originally, which all you can ask for. Yeah, another common problem, worm in rails, in chair rails. Rails generally are made of beech, and worm love beech. They absolutely adore it. And they always tend to get in. This is a stool, originally mostly silvered, dating from about 1680. And this rail, oh, wrong one again. This rail here had actually broken in half completely from worm. And someone had put this metal bracket right round to support it. Now, obviously, you can't have that. And you can see here as well, the tenon's actually sheared off from worm damage. So what I do in this situation, you want to keep the inside surface and the bottom surface, because once it's upholstered, you turn it over, they're the two surfaces you see. So you want to preserve those at all costs, because any ruining of those surfaces will affect its value, and then people start to question the authenticity. So what I do is I glue the rail with some thick lining paper with animal glue to a parallel piece of solid wood. Let that set overnight. And then on the circular saw, working from the outside edge into the board, where the board is here, I do it on the circular saw, obviously without any guards or anything, obviously. But it's fine, it's quite an easy process, and I go as shallow, as close as I can to the edges. I feel safe. And you can see the worm damage there. There's loads and loads of worm. And then I mill up a new piece of beech, glue it in with West System normally, because it runs into the holes and gives a bit more structure. And then you can cut the tenons, and once it's in and upholstered, you can't see the repair, because the upholster's on the top edge. Obviously the webbing goes on here, so you won't see it. And that's almost as honest repair as you can get. So I'm not trying to cheat anything, just trying to make it usable so it can be used. And then obviously you take the rail off the block and you can wash the glue off, because it's animal glue, so you don't lose much surface. This is a very nice commode from about 1780, and it had a lot of issues. Been in a house for a long time, and you can see all the patches. I thought I'd show you this, because this is all the patches I had to do everywhere. There's a lot of work, this one was. Common thing with a lot of antique furniture is having a cleat on the end, and then the boards go in the opposite direction, so when they shrink, you end up with splits. You can see the joints. Luckily, most of these are gone on the joints, which is actually a good thing. So then you can router in a strip, and then put in a fresh piece of pine. And again, you take it close to the surface as you can, but obviously not to the surface. And this had had a plant pot on it for years. And the urn had disintegrated. Because it was sand shaded, it becomes a bit more brittle as well from the sand shading, because you're basically burning the wood. And there were various repairs, old repairs, and you see there's chunks missing. So once I stabilised the ground wood, had all the fillets in, and I had a fillet from the top as well there. I got some boxwood, and then I cut all the patches to fit. A bit of sand shading, it's just silver sand on the hot plate in a tobacco tin, and you just sort of gauge it by some test pieces to see how long and how hot, because you don't do it that often. And once you get the desired effect, you know how long it takes, and each piece can go in and be done right. And then that's it in, and I engraved it with a V-tool. I tried engravers, didn't get on with them, so I haven't got the time and effort to do it, so I just used a V-tool just to do the engraving. We've got a freeze on the, oh, there we go. We're back. This is the bottom of one of the doors. Again, you can see the amount of shrinkage, because this is the cleat going, the grain going that way, and the panels generally going up and down. So you can see the misalignment caused by the shrinkage. So you've got first, again, stabilise the cleat so it moves less as much as it can. I mean, now it's been in the house for a long time, it shouldn't move much. It was going back in the same place. It should have found its equal sort of movement. And then basically it's just cutting all patches. This is sycamore, or the groundwood of the banding. You can see the grain structure there, it's sycamore. Yeah, got all the patches in. Loads of fun. This is a very nice Indian cabinet dating from 1680, I think, on a George II later stand. The stand's later. And this had all the ivory was curled up everywhere, and it was falling out. So every piece of ivory, I had to glue down pretty much all of it. Take out, animal gluing, press, just so much. And there are a lot of bandings missing, previous bad repairs, but a lovely piece. The guide had it 25 years. He didn't know who could restore it. Luckily, I got the job, and it turned out really good in the end. It's Indian rosewood, this one, not Rio, so, and obviously a lot of ivory. I had to make, you won't see it, but I had to make this banding. There's a lot of this banding missing from the piece. There's some photos later. So with the Veritas veneer scraper, this is here, I sawn cut the veneers, and then I scraped them, as you can see there, on this, because then it sits on the timber, so you can set the blade really accurately, and you can get the veneers to, I don't know, 0.01 of a difference, so it's fine. I mean, all the bandings are handmade anyway, so you want a little bit of discrepancy. So once they're all glued up, they're glued up there, you make your little, like sticks of rock going up and down, and then you put the banding on top, and that's the original, which is ivory. I actually used holly for this, because obviously you're not going to use ivory, and the polyester resin which you can buy is just too brittle. You wouldn't be able to make it in that smaller diameter, because that's about 1/2 mil, those squares. It just wouldn't take it. So holly's the whitest wood, and quite easily accessible. You can get it fairly easily. And it's ethically, obviously, a good timber to use, material to use. So yeah, that's putting in the bandings. This was a very nasty repair, where obviously a chunk had come out at some point. Someone had put an awful patch in, not even the right timber. So again, the sellotape technique. So you can put it on the piece, mark it out as small as possible. So you're taking little as the original as possible. You can see there, that's just got hard wax in where the banding's gone. So that's one of the areas I had to put the band in. And then once the patch is in, cut out the flowers that were, I was able to copy some of the other ones from the piece. starting to go in. There's the banding in. More sort of putting it in, and then put the engraving in, and that was my work done before it went off to the finisher. This was a lovely walnut bookcase, about 10 foot wide, 9 foot tall. One of the biggest bookcases I've seen, and one of the nicest of a walnut period. Very early, about again 16, can't remember when it was, no 1730, 1740, I think, this bookcase. And two of the panels in the doors had totally, one had broken in half because the boards had warped so much, had actually broken the board. And the other one was very badly bowed. And the client wanted that eliminated. So I didn't know exactly, a lot of jobs you do, you don't know how you're going to approach it until you start getting into it. And then the job speaks to you, you sort of work through it, and it sort of, you try maybe think about one technique, and sometimes you're laying in bed and you think, oh, this might work, and you try another way. So what I did with this, I sawed it in half because it was 12 mil thick. So it gave me the scope to cut the board in half, because the veneer on the back was almost as important as the veneer on the front. You couldn't lose it. So I ran it first through the circular saw to take as far as I could on the circular saw, then just used a hand saw to cut right through the whole board. And then I clamped it down with cambered battens to a flat board, just a melamine piece of MDF, and then thicknessed it to about 3.5 mil. And then what I did, I made loads of oak ply, basically, of about, again, 2-3 mil. And then I cross-laminated the board onto the original panel. And each time I glued one on, I glued that with fish glue. I let it dry overnight. Then I planed it down again to the right thickness to put the next one on, because when you thickness things, it doesn't always come out exactly. And that was the finished result. So you end up with a 5-ply. And Chippendale used plywood. He made plywood out of solid timber. So it's not unusual. And obviously that then was dead flat, and hopefully should stay that way. I hope so. And that was the panel gone back in. That was a big job, that one as well. Massive, massive amount of work. All the cross-grain mouldings all falling off. A lot of work in that bookcase. This is this sort of a general repair, pair of mahogany bergères dating from about 1820. Obviously just damage, just from knocking, falling over, whatever. Put the patches in with Aradite, I mostly would have used there. And then just mark it up carefully and just work round it. And this one on the left, that turn-in was so fine on the edge, the turn-in that was on it was all busted out to the point you couldn't repair it. So it was easier just to make a new one. And you can see the grain structure is very similar anyway. Again, shrinkage, piece of walnut, where luckily I was able to lift this veneer completely, and I was able to just shift it over and just reposition it, cut it in again. So that was very satisfying to actually save the surface as much as possible, which you always try to do if you can. Again, more shrinkage, very common problem in restoration. Lovely satinwood demi-lune table dating from about 1780. Again, you can see the misalignment in the bandings. This is tulip wood. This is what I've got a piece of tulip wood here. You can't, if you bleach it, it won't come out that colour. The lines just stay in it too strong, the pink lines. It's a real awkward timber. So again, I think that was the African rosewood I used in the bandings to replace. You can see it's very similar. It's a bit lighter, which is easier, because you can always paint lines in to sort of add that, but you can't take them out normally. And then just doing the patches, again with the sellotape technique, just to get those nice and neat. And when I worked in Bermuda, which was very nice, this is my workshop. I worked in Flats Inlet, so it's quite a nice place to live. And while I was there, I was very lucky to work on I think it's the oldest piece of documented Bermuda furniture. The church there, St. Peter's Church, dates from about 1620 and is the oldest Anglican church outside of the British Isles. And this cork cupboard turned up in a thrift store on the island for $100. Someone recognised it was important and bought it and donated it to the church and paid for the restoration, which is really nice, because they mostly, with a bit of research, worked out it would have come from the church at St. Peter's. And this is it finished after I'd done it, but you can see all the new timber. When it came in, it was just almost a shell. All this front wasn't there, all the panels and the drawers. So we had the turn-ins on the side, so I was able to replicate those. And this is out Bermuda cedar, which is only found in Bermuda. So it's a very rare timber now, but the person I worked for had quite a large stock. So we're quite lucky we could use the right timber. It's a really nice smelling cedar as well.
Did they send it to you, or did you?
That I was working over there for 4 years. So, and I even replicated, which no one will see, on the pit saw marks on the inside of the panels. I replicated those on the inside of the panels and on the drawer bottoms that I made. And it was all a peg construction. It wasn't glued. Mostly glue wouldn't have worked there because it's so humid. They might not have had it at that point. So it's quite a sort of simple construction, but a very nice piece. And there, I'm in the church with it. And that's it finished. I actually got a photo of a finished article for once. And that's the church, right there in St. George's. St. George's? Yeah, I think it's St. George's, yeah. Hmm?
I know exactly where it is.
You know, yeah, you've been there, haven't you?
Don't take a break.
Yeah, yep, okay.
Should we take a break for mince pie? Come on, have a look.
And any questions you want to ask, come up. I've got various things to show. If you want a spring,